Okay, here we go. Michael, it's such a pleasure to have you as the Organuary, part of the Organuary 2024. I'm really um, excited to just in general have a discussion about salt. I think in general, it's a misunderstood category. It's a growing category. I think if you look back even 20 years ago, that you didn't at all have the options of salt you do now. So there's clearly a lot of awareness around there. So I'm really excited to share who you are, your company with everyone so that we can better understand what we should be looking for and why quality and salt matters. But let's start off just sharing a little bit about you. How did you get into this crazy world of salt?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, James. Really appreciate it. Excited to be here. Excited to share more about our company. So my name is Michael Sileck. I jokingly call myself our Chief Mineral Officer of Sea Agri Solutions. I handle our marketing and sales and innovation efforts for the organization. And really, my background is in product development and marketing of truly health and wellness products. I've worked in the culinary space. I've worked in sleep health and sleep quality, and now I'm working in with salt and also with our Sea Agri brand with nutrient density in our food supply and supporting regenerative agriculture missions as well. So really love to work with products and services that can help improve people's lives through nutrition and through other wellness practices.
Excellent. I have to, I always love like how people's names sometimes can mirror what they're doing. When you say your last name, Selleck, it makes me think of Salt Lick. I don't know why, but it just I find that's kind of fun and amusing. But well, so tell me, so did you actually help find, are you one of the co-founders of the of Baja Gold and C90?
So I am not, no. And our family actually has been helping with the Sea Agri mission. We acquired Sea Agri about 4 years ago from the founder of the organization. And so the story of Sea Agri is one that is many decades in the making, actually up to 70 decades in the making. Sea Agri was the commercialization of research and innovation done by a gentleman named Dr. Maynard Murray in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And Dr. Murray actually pioneered the idea of using ocean water as a fertilizer and of using the minerals and trace elements that are in the ocean to remineralize our depleted soils so that our food supply and the nutrient density in that food supply could be restored. And so Robert Kane, and we can definitely go into a lot of exciting and really interesting stories about all of these different decades. But Robert Kane started C90 in 2003 and followed that up with Baja Gold in about 2013 and did a wonderful job of building the organization. And then my family has been involved for about 4 years now, kind of a wide range of different professional expertise to really bring C90 and Baja Gold to more people and make our products more readily available, really globally, with ultra high quality and consistency, so that we can bring these health and wellness benefits to more people across the world.
So since we're talking about the actual products, let's distinguish them. Because it sounds like almost the founder really was focusing on C90, right? That it was really they were really focusing on the agricultural piece, not necessarily the residential kind of uh
Culinary side. Yep.
grocery, yeah, culinary side.
Yeah, absolutely. So Robert Kane started with the C90 brand. And just to take things back to Dr. Murray, if that's okay, Dr. Murray was a medical doctor. And during the 40s and 50s, he was really dismayed with the health quality of his patients. And he found that, it's a world of innovational leap at that time, a lot of technological advances. But he saw we were going to the moon and doing all of these wonderful things, but the quality of the health of his patients was declining. And he said, that doesn't make sense. Everything else in the world is advancing. Why is it that human health is not following suit? And he found through a lot of different research that the nutrient density and the overall quality of our food supply chain was declining. And if you looked at the perhaps amount of magnesium, amount of calcium that might be in milk, or the quality of our grain supply in the 40s and 50s relative to studies done in the early 1900s, that nutrient density, that mineral density was significantly lower than it was 40 or 50 years prior. And so armed with that information, he kind of sought to better understand how the food supply chain works, how agriculture works, how farming practices can play a role in the eventual output of what you are raising and what you are farming. And then concurrent to that, he actually studied the marine life and the ocean life alongside of land life. And he made this interesting discovery that while land life seems to suffer from cellular degeneration and various different diseases like cancer, marine life does not suffer from those challenges. And the key difference is that marine life is living within this saltwater and really mineral water ecosystem, whereas land life, if you go back to those farming practices, has seen soil health, has seen mineral density in our food supply chain decrease over time. So you have one group of animals, group of life that is living in a mineral-rich environment that is thriving, and you have a group of life that is living in a mineral-deficient ecosystem, and their health is declining. And he said, well, that's really interesting. Is there a way to bring the vitality and the power of the ocean, the minerality of the ocean, into our food supply, kind of restore the minerals that were once there so that we can raise a healthier population and ultimately the health of his family, his relatives would be higher. And so he pioneered this idea of using ocean water in agriculture. First, he started by using just pure ocean water, using it as a fertilizer, truly integrating it into soil fertilization, using it within hydroponics. And then over time, he found this works very well, but as anyone who works in logistics knows, shipping water is extremely expensive. It's
Very
extremely
expensive.
challenging. We do, of course, a lot of our farming in the Great Plains and in the Midwest of our great country here. Not an ocean nearby, unfortunately. And so he said, how can I bring the power of the oceans to our farming lands? And the answer was a dehydrated sea solid, or an ocean mineral, or another term for an unrefined sea salt. He found a location in Mexico that has the highest mineral density. He figured out a way to dehydrate that ocean water and leave an ultra concentrated mineral crystal, essentially. That was known as sea solids at the time. It would come to be known as C90. And that product was used throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s in various different research studies in the Great Plains and in the Midwest to remineralize soils, foliar spray on pastures and row crops and increase their nutrient density, and then ultimately feed to livestock as well and animals that we are raising so that they have a more nutrient source of food. So all of this research, Robert Kane was actually a part of in the 70s and 80s. And several decades passed. There was a couple of different life changes and events that occurred. But in the early 2000s, Robert resurrected this technology, resurrected this idea of ocean mineralization, and brought C90 to market using the same source of ocean water and sea solids that he had worked on with Dr. Murray. So long way of kind of explaining that, yes, our roots at Sea Agri are in agriculture. They are in regenerative and organic-based agriculture that is meant to restore and regenerate the minerality and the nutrient density of our food supply, not only nationwide, but worldwide. And that is where a large majority of my time is still spent on the day-to-day. We are challenging the status quo, challenging paradigms within agriculture, encouraging people to think outside of the, we call it the NPK box, and consider different ways of soil, land management, of crop growing, and of animal management, livestock husbandry, and things of that nature.
It's interesting to me that the sea salt would be pro-agriculture. Because I now just moved to the East Coast, but I remember when I was living in Portland, Oregon, they would not let people salt the sidewalks. Now I know that's not a sea salt, but that rock salt, because they were very cognizant or aware of the damage that can do to the environment. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's like, is it purely just the sourcing of the salt that makes the difference? Like, why is this rock salt not good for our environment, but yet this sea salt is good for our topsoil?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And that really is the genesis of what makes Sea Agri products different from anything else on the marketplace today. So salt itself, when people think of salt, they typically think of maybe rock salt, like you're thinking of, for roadway use, or they're thinking of table salt at their local diner, kind of that white, flowable, maybe comes in a blue canister. There's several different table salt brands out there, but you guys all know what I'm talking about. Salt itself is going to be in its purest form 99% sodium chloride, which is NaCl. And that is going to be something that has very limited nutrient quality. And if used in an agricultural way, will not have benefits in the same way that an unrefined sea salt or an ocean mineral will. And the difference is that sodium chloride in its pure form is really not something that occurs in nature. And what I mean by that is most people think of, okay, where do you get salt from? And you get it from the ocean. And so if you dehydrate ocean water, what's left is not table salt. What's left is sodium chloride, yes, but also all of nature's minerals and trace elements in relative proportion to one another. And so in order to actually obtain pure salt, you have to undergo additional processing to actually strip out those minerals and trace elements so that all you are left with is the sodium chloride. And that does have applications. It has applications in the food world. Perhaps it has applications in roadway use and whatnot. But that itself is not something that occurs in nature on its own, sodium chloride, and therefore does not have true benefits in the agricultural world. So that may be why in your example there, they don't want to spread pure sodium chloride on their land, on their soils. The difference with C90 and what we're doing with regenerative agriculture is that we use a very limited processing technique that is limited to solar dehydration that maintains the mineral balance within C90. So you have all 90 plus minerals and trace elements. You have a reduced sodium chloride level relative to table salt. So typically C90 or Baja Gold will have a sodium chloride level of about 75% versus that 99, 98, 99% sodium chloride of table salt. And the balance is going to be made up of magnesium, potassium, sulfur, calcium, and then also all of those beneficial trace minerals or micro minerals such as zinc, boron, selenium, what have you. And so that type of a product, a ocean mineral with all of nature's minerals and trace elements, can provide benefit to soils. It can provide benefit to plant tissue and then also to animals as well. And really that type of a product is only available when you use these unrefined sea salt techniques. If you're watching on video here, there's a picture behind me of our retention ponds in Baja, Mexico. So what we do to create this product is we simply allow the lunar tide to flood these retention ponds. We let the sun dehydrate the ocean water from the Sea of Cortez for a period of 4 to 8 weeks. And then we capture the ocean minerals. And that's it. There's no anti-caking agents. There's no artificial heat. There's nothing else done to that resulting product. It's a pure natural product. And having all of those minerals and trace elements linked with that sodium chloride is what allows the product to support soil health, improve soil fertility, and then provide those benefits to plants and animals as well. So that's a long-winded answer a little bit, but that is the key difference between a rock salt or an earth salt or a table salt that's been processed and stripped of those mineral benefits.
So this is fascinating. So those beds behind you in the video, I mean, they look like huge plots of, it's kind of square, but they're huge. So that's where the salt is drying, but you shared that you wait for the tide to fill those. So is the tide not happening within 24 every 24 hours, or is this once a month that the tide does that? Like how do you prevent the tide from coming back and washing away what you already started to dry?
Sure, it's actually a very unique location. We are actually about 6 to 8 miles out of the coast, and there's this very low elevation alluvial topsoil is what they call it. It's almost like a marshy kind of topsoil that the tide travels over. And for whatever reason, it only actually reaches the retention ponds about 4 to 6 times per year. It's kind of
Ah,
getting pulled in, and then it sometimes gets pulled out, and then it gets pulled back in. And so we are not, we don't see the water every day. We actually only see it about 4 to 6 times per year. And then we have dug down these retention ponds even further below the land level there. And so there's some drainage and kind of irrigation to help keep the water in, or if it's already been flooded, to kind of shut off the water flow so that we can then process and create the ocean minerals. So it is a highly natural process. We do use the lunar patterns to bring the water in so that we aren't exerting any energy or anything of that nature by pumping or anything of that nature. It flows in naturally from the Sea of Cortez and then is dried by the sun.
wow, that's fascinating. I hope people can see the image because it's really powerful. And so we've you've already mentioned it, but so the Baja Gold mineral sea salt is the culinary side of your business. Obviously, you're not refining, but you're processing the salt a little bit finer so that people can add it to their food, correct?
Yes, and so the Baja Gold is a kind of a funny story. So Robert Kane created C90 in 2003, and it was around 2010, 2011. He started getting phone calls from farmers, and they said, Robert, I love your product. It's an incredible product. I feed it to my animals, and I'm out on the farm, and what they were alluding to was a little bit of dehydration and electrolyte needs. They told him, I'm out on the farm and I take a pinch of C90 and I put it in my mouth. And if I'm working a long day in the summer in the heat, I feel so much better when I have that C90 in my mouth there. And they said, I've tried bringing this 50-pound kind of dirty bag of livestock salt into the kitchen and it doesn't go over so well. But you have a great product. Could you kind of make this a little bit more kitchen friendly for me? And so Robert said, yeah, we could definitely do that. And he created the Baja Gold brand and started putting it in smaller packages. Of course, you don't want to lug a 50-pound bag into your kitchen every day. So we have smaller packages nowadays. We have like a nice little tabletop grinder. We have 1-pound bags, 5-pound bags. But what we have done over the years since then is actually separated the production facilities so that our C90 product is bagged, if you will, in a agriculture grade facility, but the Baja Gold product, it actually is hand screened. We put an extra set of hands on it and eyes on it to make sure it's as clean and pristine as possible, and then it's hand bagged in a facility that meets FDA cleanliness and sterility standards. So the products are all sourced from the same location, but we have some extra care with the Baja Gold so that it is the highest quality for you and your family members.
I can speak directly to the Baja Gold. I've been using it. I think I got some at the Wise Traditions conference. And I am using it currently and it's really nice. There's some larger chunks, which is always fun when you're doing anything culinary. You can actually like see like little rocks, rock salt kind of style put on it. So it's sort of a mix of smaller grain and just kind of rustic feel to it, which I like. And then the flavor is really nice. It's not too salty. Like it's got this beautiful balance to it, which is not common with chunkier pieces of salt. Sometimes they're overly uh strong in terms of or salty. So I have to say I've been really impressed with it. I wish that we could use, I mentioned this to you when we first met. I wish we could use it in pluck. The only problem is that it's too wet for our product. Because sea salt is, when it's natural sea salt, it tends to just be a little bit more wet. Now, there's something though that is definitely a concern for a lot of people, and it's kind of the buzzwords right now. One of them is mercury, or is it mercury? Sorry, no, is it what was it? Oh, lead. Sorry, lead being found in a lot of rock salt. And then the other is microplastics in sea salt. Can you speak to either of those or both of those?
Absolutely. And we take quality and contamination very seriously at Sea Agri on both the C90 and the Baja Gold side. We do robust third-party testing to ensure that our products test very well for heavy metals and test, and by very well, I mean very low, and test negatively for all other contaminants, microplastics, glyphosate, what have you. So just to go through them in order, we do a robust pesticide and other contaminant test on both C90 and Baja Gold for over 400 different pesticides. We do this in partnership with Midwest Labs, which is a third-party independent lab. It includes glyphosate and various other branded and unbranded pesticides that are out there, kind of chemical compounds, if you will. Baja Gold and C90 routinely test negative for the presence of all of those substances. We also test for microplastics. We test negative for microplastics, and we do robust heavy metal testing. And our results are very, very low. In many cases, they are undetectable at extremely low detection levels. What I will say on heavy metals in particular, ocean water contains all of nature's minerals and trace elements in a perfect proportion, as Dr. Murray would say. That includes some of those heavy metals. If you test ocean water at the right levels, you will find lead, you will find very, very ultra trace levels of mercury and of all of nature's minerals and trace elements. And that's how, if you will, God created the ocean. And so that is present in all natural unrefined sea salts. What's important is that you monitor those levels and ensure that they are extremely, extremely low and in the ultra, ultra trace quantities, because that ensures that they are safe for consumption. And so if you look at our reports, you will see that our values are extremely low, or in many cases, like I mentioned, undetectable. I believe cadmium, arsenic, and mercury are actually undetectable in our tests at parts per billion levels. That is the level that we are testing at. We're not trying to, artificially raise the bar here so that you clear it. No, they're very, very strict testing guidelines, parts per billion levels of detection. And the summation of all of this is that we source our products from a very clean body of water, the Sea of Cortez. There is not industry in the Sea of Cortez the way that there is in the Gulf of Mexico. This is not the Gulf of Mexico where people are familiar with oil spills and things of that nature. The government of Mexico is extremely proud and extremely protective of the Sea of Cortez, and we feel very confident about the quality of the water that we use to start with, and the end-to-end production process, if you will, and the types of tools that we use to ultimately bag C90 and Baja Gold. And not only are those practices in place with our team, but we also check and verify them with this third-party testing. So hopefully that gives your listeners a sense of confidence. And I encourage on both the concerning side, if you will, heavy metals, contaminants, what have you, but then also the positive side with all of the minerals, visit our website and look at all of the third-party testing we do and we post very transparently for you to compare. So we believe in transparency at Sea Agri. We provide routine annualized testing. We post the actual test from Midwest Labs or from Eurofins or from Advanced Labs. And so you're not going to see something on our letterhead, for example. You're going to see the actual test results for you to kind of do your own research and make your own conclusions.
And I'll ask you again at the end of our talk, but what is that website in case someone wants to go right there from hearing you talk?
Sure. So C90 is going to be sea-90.com, and Baja Gold is going to be BajaGoldSaltco.com, and that's Baja Gold Salt Co.com. And within both of those, if you look for something called technical analysis, or on Baja Gold, it's called the Mineral Lab. These are in the header of the website. It's very easy to find. Again, we're very proud of our testing, and we want you to find it. We want you to look at it and compare it.
And each website leads to the other. So as long as you go to one, you'll find the other, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I'm just curious from your experience running the company, from your involvement, is the concern of microplastics in sea salt, is that a myth or is that a true concern? Or do you even know?
What I would say, so professionally, I would say that you certainly should do testing and see what is in your preferred sea salt brand. We believe that actually the alluvial topsoil that our water travels over does also act as a bit of a filtration device. The fact that we are in the upper northwest part of the Sea of Cortez, very far away from the Pacific Ocean, helps with the water purity and the quality of our product. So overall, should you be testing your product? Yes. I would say microplastics in general are becoming more and more prevalent in our everyday environment. And so I don't believe that just because you are maybe not from a living ocean does not mean that you could be subject to contaminants. And so it's important to test all salt products, all food products, because as you consider production techniques, as you consider airborne microplastics and various other things, the unfortunate reality is just that these contaminants are all around us. And so it's important to look at everything and not just say, well, if it's ocean-based, it's a real problem. If it's not ocean-based, it's not a problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it
Um,
does. No, what it sounds like this is probably not an issue with the Sea of Cortez, but I have heard this regarding other, bodies of ocean is pharmaceuticals. Is that something that's come up in, your time with the company, or has it ever come up in general? Because I remember gosh, this was a while ago, but I just remember that because so many humans are taking pharmaceuticals, that when they pee, and if that water is going into the ocean, which it does in some areas, after it's been cleaned or whatever, that the pharmaceuticals were not getting filtered out, and so there were a lot of fish that were had high levels of Prozac, or whatever it might be have been when they did the study originally. Can you speak to that, or have you kind of had to um, cross paths with that topic at all?
we honestly, we have not had to cross paths with that subject, and that is interesting, and I'm definitely kind of following the logic there. I would say we definitely will speak with our contacts at our laboratory partners and see if that's something we should be screening for. The areas that we look for are those that have the highest level of potential runoff or concentration within the water. And so agricultural pesticides and things of that nature, which are in such abundance in some parts of the world, that is why we specifically screen for those.
Right.
I don't know, given the use case you kind of just described there, I don't know if the concentrations would be enough to pose a challenge. I think what's interesting I've learned about this business is just how vast the ocean is and how much the ocean can, and really this goes for soil as well. Our land and our earth is designed to heal itself. It is. And if you
Yeah.
give it enough time, it will heal itself. And something like you had just described there, that might be so minor relative to the overall volume of ocean water, that the ocean is able to take care of that over a relatively short period of time.
When I imagine that a lot of the discussion of toxicity is concentrated around, big cities and whatnot, populated areas. I mean, because you start out the talk mentioning how the underwater life seemed healthier than the land life, but the reality is that it's not as healthy near populated areas, where you have big cities and runoff and whatever pollution, anything like that. So I think the human effect takes its toll on nature, no matter whether it's underwater or above water. But to your
No, you're
point,
right, and even I mean, you see some of the fish farming, and you start unnaturally concentrating marine life, even though it is still surrounded by the health of benefits of the minerals. If fish aren't meant to be that enclosed and that confined with one another, they have health challenges, and so that's
exactly.
the human
And
impact, like you
and
said,
the ecosystem around them starts to have health issues,
suffers.
of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to your point, I think choosing the environment that you're pulling the resource from is really, really key. And clearly you guys have chosen wisely. Thank you so much for joining us today. You mentioned the website already, but why don't you go ahead and mention that again and where people can find you on socials as well?
Sure. So for Baja Gold, I please check us out if you are interested in kind of a culinary sea salt. I would recommend looking into the benefits of sea salt for your overall health and wellness, for your hydration purposes. Salt is having a real renaissance at the moment, and salt is so important, not only just to salt your eggs in the morning, it's for your overall health and vitality, and having a mineral-rich sea salt is so critical for your health and wellness. Baja Gold Salt Co.com, BAJAGOLD saltco.com. Please take a look at our Baja Gold difference page, which compares all of the leading brands of sea salt, compares their sodium content with their magnesium, potassium, calcium, sulfur, and other trace mineral content. And you may be surprised to kind of see how some of the salts that popular culture may make you think are extremely healthy, how the numbers may actually kind of stack up relative to other salts, including Baja Gold. So please take a look at that website. We have a whole line of products beyond our mineral sea salt for table use. We have a liquid ocean mineral product for health and wellness. We also just launched a bath and soak product that's incredibly powerful. You'll sleep better than you ever have before.
Really?
And then yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I'll have to get some of that. And then is the liquid the liquid ocean minerals, are those a good replacement for the electrolytes that a lot of people are taking?
It's a great alternative. Yes,
That
it's a
alternative.
natural, yeah, it's an alternative. It's a natural approach. We concentrate our mineral sea salts back into kind of distilled empty water, if you will. So it's not a lab created, perfect values, if you will, trace mineral supplement. It's going to be giving you the minerals and trace elements back from the ocean in a liquid form. So it's an incredible product in that fashion. And yeah, so BajaGoldSaltCo.com. And then if you are a homesteader, or even if you just have some house plants or you're an aspiring gardener, C-90.com is going to give you more information on our regenerative agriculture mission. We have products that are, again, they're fit for a small home all the way through. We work with commercial farms that bring in C90 by the dozens of full truckloads, which is a lot of salt. So we have products for anyone who is working with nature, and we'll help bring the minerals and trace elements back into whatever it is you're working with.
And is there any concern? I think the industry, when we started pushing sea salt more, within the culinary world particularly, the industry fought back saying, well, there's no iodine in sea salt, right? So they were trying to, kind of scare people. What do you guys usually say to that kind of mentality, or that?
Sure. So Baja Gold does contain iodine in the natural proportions that are available in the ocean. So we typically test at around 5 parts per million, which is a bit of a trace quantity. There was a lot of regulatory work done around iodine many, many decades ago due to some challenges with food quality and iodine deficiencies in your overall diet. And so on virtually all salts that don't have iodine added as an ingredient, which is a processing technique, it's an additive, it's not a natural thing, you're going to see the phrase, "this salt does not supply iodine." And that is a government regulatory requirement from the FDA that dates back, I believe, to the 60s or 70s. So don't let that scare you. Kind of look at what your source of nutrition is, your food that you're eating. It's incredibly likely that you're getting plenty of iodine from your food. And you'll also get a little bit of it from Baja Gold as well, or any of the other major sea salts that are out there. They just don't cross this specific threshold that was set many decades ago. So that's the backstory there.
I think it was actually before the 60s. I think it actually was came out when the blue bottled salt that we're not mentioning the name of, when that was basically produced and sold to the US. That's, I think, when it happened, which I think was maybe even earlier than the 60s. I want to say even the 40s maybe, but yeah,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah, but to your point, like it's a manufactured concept. It's not natural to salt as it is what
correct,
you're saying. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, so important for people to know that you're getting iodine in other foods and probably enough that you don't need to have table salt, right? So um
Supplemented with
yeah,
iodine, correct,
yeah,
yeah.
I think it's very important for us to remember that some of these things we've grown up with are propaganda and they're not necessarily actually accurate, nor are they necessary for our survival. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your passion. Those watching the video or listening during the month of January, all the way up to February 7th, can save 15% on either Seagold or actually on both Seagold, C90 and Baja Gold by using the code ORGANUARY. It will be in the notes. But that's ORGANUARY to save 15% off all of their products. Highly recommend. I can't speak to C90. I don't have a garden, but I or a farm, maybe one day. But the Baja Gold is fantastic, everyone. I highly recommend it. I've really enjoyed it, and it's such a pleasure getting to talk to you. And I wish you guys all the best.
Thanks so much, James. Appreciate it. Same to you.
Thank you, and thanks for participating in our January.
Of course. Happy to do so.